Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. We got a great topic to talk about today. Of course, it's pertaining to the United States president trip to South Korea and Japan. Boy, there's a lot to cover into that. But like we always do, before I launch into this, let me first of all comment on the question from last session because it was very important. And I concur with the majority of you because you guys were spot on, basically. I picked just one comment here from Yan Ho Kor when he said, and I quote, the answer to the question for the short to medium term, at least, is no. And this is because, as you alluded to earlier, the lack of infrastructure to make it a viable substitute. You're absolutely correct. And many of you said the same thing. The infrastructure lacking in Africa is what's going to not make it viable for them, Africa, to replace Russian oil. So anyway, and I want to say thank you for answering those questions. So now, with this topic here, I want you to keep in mind about 3 or 4 key points. One of them has to do with North Korea's possible nuclear test. Second point is Taiwan, of course. Third one is Solomon Island. And the fourth is Senkaku Island, or as one of our viewers helped me out to pronounce this, is Deliote. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So the 3 themes we're going to cover into the analysis, into the discussions we're going to have before I provide you a brief analysis on all this is the economy, security, and energy, and what it all means within the big picture of this trip of the president of the United States to South Korea and Japan. Before, just for you to, there is a lot to unpack into the trip itself, because the trip has a lot of hidden geopolitical, security, economic messages, not only to particularly China, but also to a whole region. And this is why it's very important. And I couldn't wait to get on. I didn't want to wait till Sunday when the president is going to conclude his trip. I said, no. I better share the information with our viewers right now. So if this is your first time on our channel, please make sure you subscribe. And guys, help me out here and help the whole team here by supporting us by sharing this video with your friends. So help us out, grow out our subscribers. So, all right, let's jump into our topic. Well, of course, as I said, and I'm going to start with a provoking question for you guys to think about and consider. Is the U.S. president's trip to Japan and South Korea a warning to China? That just, from the get-go. We'll start with that. So, of course, President Biden's arrived to South Korea this afternoon, actually around probably 4 o'clock our time here, kicking off a 5-day trip to South Korea and Japan. And here is what's interesting. Air Force One landed at a U.S. military base in Osan Air Base. It didn't land in Seoul. And where is Osan Air Base? It's about 46 miles from the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. Once again, you can just see the message for that. Could this be the reason why North Korea said that they're going to test nuclear weapon, missile, whatever, that coincide with the arrival of the president? They had a tip that the president is going to land in Osan Air Base instead of Seoul? Maybe not. So, but anyway, the trip is meant to put the current administration focus back on Asia or Indo-Pacific, whatever term you want to use, and especially, as I said earlier in my question at the beginning, especially when it comes down to China, because as the United States president said on many occasions that to him or to his administration, China is a priority. They needed to tackle that. So, and without going through, because I am not here to talk about the itinerary, I'm not here to talk about the president meeting with the Emperor of Japan. I care less for that kind of stuff. That's just protocol. I don't care for that. What I care about is understanding the significance of the trip. What does it mean? This almost takes me back to my years when I was doing my master's degree, and we had and I did it in international security, and I remember we were talking about Asian security issues. And even back then, I still remember Professor and Dr. Heffer. Still remember his name because he was a good friend of mine. We maintained the friendship and contact after the program was over. And even back then, lay out the argument as far as, for example, with the issue of Taiwan. You can circle all you want, and Taiwan is going to be that key point that could truly trigger everything in a different direction. Yes, the trip like this sends the message here and there and all that, but it's still, as we learned back then and still applied today, there are core security issues in Asia that will always define that security parameter based on which you will see the outcome geopolitically speaking. That's what I found very, very interesting. And as I said, that was way back and still applies today. So on Sunday, based on, and I had a chance to read about the itinerary, shall we say. So President Biden is going to go to Japan, and after which he's going to have an audience with the emperor on Monday. Then the key is not about the meeting with the emperor. That's just protocol formality, shall we say. The key is on Monday when it comes down to Japan. Why? Because the President Biden is going to have a meeting with the Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So that is what's interesting, and I'm going to detail a few things about Japan, so for you to put things within perspective. Let me say thank you to Mike Jin. Appreciate your super sticker. Truly appreciate it, Mike. So let's start with the economy first, because given what's going on around the world, you cannot ignore the global economy and how it is, of course, because and I'm going to talk about energy as well, because it's very, very important. So here is the thing. The itinerary of the president, right on the bat, it reflects one particular thing, which is what? It's the first destination of where President Biden is going to go once he is in South Korea. And guess where he's going to go? He's going to go to Samsung Electronics semiconductor plant in the city called Pyeongtaek. Oh, my apologies to the Korean speakers if I mispronounce this, and I apologize for that. So which is the south of Seoul. That's what it is. But again, it's not about going to take a look at the factory, whatever. It's the significance of it, given what's going on regarding semiconductor. You all know what's taking place in Taiwan, what's taking place in China, what's taking place in the US regarding who can. And I remember we did a video about this, guys. We talked about who controls semiconductors, controls part of the global economy. That is the importance of it. Why the president is going to go to Samsung. That is interesting enough, is that Samsung has major deals in the Chinese market. So, and I'll tell you why in a second here. So, because this particular destination, the Samsung Electronics semiconductor plant, it's where the tech giant produces two main things: the memory and the foundry chips. Those are very, very, very crucial. But here is the irony out of all this. Interesting enough is that Samsung's vice chairman, Lee Yi-yong, he will be the one introducing President Biden to the factory. But what's interesting about this guy is that the district court, the court in Seoul, the district court in Seoul, excused him, meaning Mr. Lee, from attending a hearing in an accounting fraud. trial. That's how ironic it is. So for him to be free on Friday, to allow him to prepare for the event. So, which I found very disturbing. And yes, I would say, yes, of course, because his possession, whatever. But let's be fair here. Will that happen to an average person if he, for example, one of his or her parents passed away? Will the court allow the individual to go attend the funeral? I'm just asking here. So I just find it very ironic. But anyway, it's not, again, that is not where the focus on what we're going to be talking about here. So the other thing that you guys have to keep in mind, again, on that big picture, is the current sanctions on Russia. Okay. Why the same sanctions will not, I will say this convincingly, will not apply or simply be put against China. It won't. First of all, because it will be too costly to the United States. Second is that South Korea is one of the largest trading partners to China, and the biggest source of goods that Japan import from China. So in either case, the United States will not, mark my word on it, the United States, no matter what, will not be in a position to sanction China. Now, there are those who said, well, why not? It's because we're going to feel the impact here very bad. And we all know where things are produced, because we are a consuming society. We buy things, we don't produce things, let alone the cheap labor, the cost, and all that stuff involved in that. So that is the reason. And mark my word on it, if you happen to be an American watching this, we will never sanction China. I'll say this conventionally. Let me move to talk about security. As I said, I'm going to just provide the brief stuff here, then I'll jump into my analysis on this. From a security perspective, at its core, this trip, it wasn't about alliance. It wasn't about visiting with my buddy and ally and all that stuff. No, it is about building an alliance network in East Asia. That is the bottom line to it. Geopolitically thinking and from a security perspective. And what is all that for? In part of it to counter the Chinese actions against Taiwan. That's why I said you keep in mind the issue of Taiwan. Because let's not what's the word I'm looking for? Let's not be naive. China is watching right now how the West is dealing with Russia in Ukraine, and we all, of course, there are conflicting reports as to where the advancements of Russia is, what the Ukrainians have achieved, and all that. Which personally, I just don't buy that arguments. I wouldn't know where to look for the information, and I've already contacted some of my trusted sources that I can verify the accuracy of the information. So China, as we speak, is watching. And that is giving China an idea how to proceed moving forward, should and when that time comes. And here's the thing: what's complicating what's the word I'm looking for? The message for President Biden in this context, is that the current administration, and I speak for myself here, guys, the current administration has not laid out a strategy of sort or a plan of sort to how it intends to deal with China, counter China, challenge China, or whatever term you want to use, when China moves forward with the issue of Taiwan. We say it's straightforward. There's no strategy there. I've been looking for information from the government to understand all the reports or the analysis from within the government, there is no clear strategy. Even as the United States intelligence community, they kind of are in the process of preparing some sort of an analysis of which direction things could go. Because as I always say, you have to play the scenario of what if. You don't play just one or two or three, multiple one. Because each one of them will have a different outcome. And you have to consider all the possibilities. Okay? Like this trip. How this trip will be interpreted. It won't be interpreted the same among all Asian countries. No, because it will not be smart to think in those terms. And we shouldn't be thinking in those terms because we know some countries inside Asia are thinking differently. You look no further than the fiasco of ASEAN summit in Washington last week. There are even those who said, well, maybe ASEAN shouldn't even accepted the invitation. That seems to be the logical argument. Where the order to show up, you decide on that. So, and this is why I'm saying, you think about it from a different angles. Not all Asia is going to be thinking the same, of course, because there are different interests, there are different priorities, economic and otherwise, which is common sense. That's what we would expect. So here's the interesting thing about the leg of the trip in Japan, and I'm getting ahead of myself here just because when I read about the itinerary, I read about the agenda, I read about all the what's going to be happening, I had to select the information that I found will be useful for you to understand, to put this within the context of not only Asian geopolitical landscape, but also within the global order. As the world is shifting, and we all know it. So in Japan, as I mentioned earlier, the President Biden, is going to meet with the Prime Minister from other 3 members of the Quad. Interestingly enough, then he also is going to meet with Kishida of the Prime Minister, and of course Narendra Modi of India. And whoever wins what is expected to be a tight election in Australia also. Interesting enough, because that's again, Aussies are watching what's going to be happening to their country. Well, actually, they can decide what they want. They saw where their country ends up in the last year. If that is what they want, then by no means they can vote back in the Prime Minister Morrison. If they want a different outcome, they know what to do. So, and by the way, it's very sad to see where Australia, the path it took. I mean, I never expect to see what I'm seeing right now, but that's a separate topic for another day. So here's the thing with the Prime Minister Kishida. What's interesting about the upcoming meeting between the president and Mr. Kishida is that the latter, it's going to disclose an increase in Japan's defense spending. I found it very, very, very interesting, and it is sending a message. You might ask, to whom? And I think we all know that's exactly where the message is going to, because Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party has proposed a 5-year time frame to double. I repeat the keyword, to double Japan's defense budget to a level equivalent to about 2% of GDP. That is no small matter, guys. All of a sudden, Japan is jumping on that. And because you have to keep in mind the tension that exists between Japan and Russia when it comes down to the northern islands in the north, whatever, there are some tensions between the two. But also, you need to remember that Japan also imports some energy from Russia. This is why Japan first challenged the sanctions as far as, well, we can only impose some sanctions, but they kind of toe the line with the United States, as we will expect, because Japan, that's supposed to do what is being told. That's how it is. So, and by the way, I intend to do a segment by itself. I'm just gathering information about the issues of the islands between Japan and China, because it is a complicated history, and I feel we need to sort of set the record straight. And I am in talks with some individuals who know that part of the world inside out, historically speaking. And once I complete my own research, we will be happy to share it with you. So let's talk about speaking of the islands, we're going to be talking about Diaoyutai, the Senkaku Islands. And here's the thing. And I did check some records, and I will provide you a link, by the way, guys, as to where this historical record is, And what I gathered from all this, and I'm summarizing all this stuff here, is that Japan knew about and recognized Chinese sovereignty over Diaoyutai before 1894. That is crucial day, because in 1895 things took a different direction. But before 1894, and this one wasn't just an oral statement or whatever. It was recorded according to Japan diplomatic documents compiled by the Japanese Foreign Ministry. And this one was in a correspondence that took place between the Minister of Internal Affairs at that time, Yamakato Aritomo, and the Foreign Minister, Inoue Kaoru, or Kaoru. It's Kaoru, and which was dated, this communication or this correspondence was dated in October 9th, 1885, and October 21st, 1885. It's very, very important to understand this. And this is why I mentioned it at the beginning. When you put the trip of the President of the United States to Japan, and could that be one of the unspoken messages as far as the support for the United States to Japan, or vice versa, that Japan is seeking the support of the United States regarding the islands? Because everything is all about messages. That's basically geopolitically speaking. So that is why I mentioned that at the beginning as a point that you need to remember, to consider. So historically speaking, once again, and I am briefing my my findings, historical one, that I said I will compile in a video that we're going to do for you guys. The Senkaku Islands, belong to China. It was annexed by Japan after Japan defeated China in the War of 1894. So 1894, 1895. So, and this is where the term after which the Chinese called the islands Diaoyutai. That's when the term was used back then, still hold till today. So those islands were supposed to return to China after the defeat of Japan in the Second World War II. The Second World War II, rather. But the United States did not return the islands to China, but gave them to Japan. So there is a really a record for this, and that's why I said I intend to do a video about it in detail, and I will provide you a link, by the way, about this. And because from my perspective, I'd like to, when I talk about something, I like to put the record straight, straight, no other way around it. Let me say thank you to AC1. Thank you very much for your super sticker. I appreciate it. So, and you guys use the term bravo. So thank you for that. Let's talk about energy, because you cannot talk about Asia without talking about energy consumption. Why? It's simple. Because Asia is the next economic hub of the global economy. No way around it. Which means what? The world runs on oil, as we know it. So you don't have to look far to see right now what's going on in Europe. You don't even have to look far to see in your own country, whatever you might be, what are the oil prices or gas prices at the gas pump. Asia consumption of oil, it will only increase, of energy in general term, it will only increase. Because here's the thing, and it's the simple question that we ought to ask is, well, okay, if there is the case, how might energy infrastructure shape the geopolitics in Asia? Because it's a fair question. You're looking at a very, very dynamics that energy is playing, and it's going to even play more pivotal role, or crucial role, that is, in shaping how the relationship within Asia is going to be, economically speaking. You take, for example, and I can just quickly here think in terms of ASEAN, a $3 trillion economy. Well, how do you think they're going to manage that? Energy is going to be at the core of it. China's economy, India consumptions, which, by the way, both countries cut a deal with Russia. Then you add Philippines, then you add, part of ASEAN, of course. You got the idea. So energy will be a very, very crucial element into that. Because here's the thing, when you think about Asia, you can apply this around the world, but let's stay focused on Asia just for now. We'll assume we're just working within the boundaries of Asia. So, and here's the thing, large scale or cross-border energy infrastructure that's going to be between countries. It's going to connect countries long-term as far as economic relations, geopolitically speaking, cooperation, and so forth. So what's going to make it very interesting, it will be the choice as to, okay, where do we want to put our next pipeline route? Through which country or countries? I can think of one thing so quick here, which is Eurasia. Why Eurasia would be very, very crucial. But again, I go back into history, using history as my guide, and consider the idea of how major empires throughout history, for them to control or manage whatever, Eurasia was part of that equation. And those empires, when they lost power, it was because they lost Eurasia. So to me personally, and I will think strategically here, building a pipeline or pipelines for energy consumption or support or infrastructure, whatever you want to call it, in Eurasia that will support Asia makes perfect geoeconomic sense. And politically, of course. And this is exactly where Barry, thank you so much for your super sticker. And I am humble. You wrote down, you are amazing. I'm humble. I'm learning too. I'm still learning, guys. I just like to share the knowledge with you. As I always say, what is the purpose of me being here on this earth? If you acquire knowledge, what is the purpose of it if you couldn't share it with other human beings, regardless wherever they are from? Because our objective in this channel here is to promote peace, peaceful coexistence. That is the objective. So if we can contribute with this little knowledge we share with you, at least I can sleep good at night. because I do ask myself the question, guys, what have I done for humanity today? I usually don't like to talk about my private life and all that stuff. That's the question I ask myself. It's like what I do when I'm teaching during the semester. Each day before I go to bed, I'll say to myself, have I given 110% to my students? I'll do the same. So your support, guys, means a lot, and I do appreciate it. So here's the thing. So the idea of a choice of a pipeline route or a decision about where to develop this interconnected channels, shall we say, or pipes, or power, or grids, or whatever you want to call it, because it will reflect economic and energy security priorities for all those countries involved. And this is why Asia is important. This is why you have to put this trip within that context, the bigger picture, economically, politically, socially, and what have you. Because in Asia, okay, and by the way, when you put this within the priorities among the states, not only economically, as I said, but also the political motivations and geopolitical objectives, shall we say, or goals, whatever they want to achieve. Because each country has its own geopolitical objective it wants to achieve. And they can go about it in any way they choose. Some of them will go the right way, some of them go the wrong way. Yeah, it's a normal state behavior, shall we say. So in Asia, energy-related infrastructure, in this case, okay, or development, that is, because we do have a living example of it. And what is the example? It's China's BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. I'm not going to get into the detail of that, but it just to highlight to you within the context of the trip. Why is that important? Because China and South Korea are shaping the regional and global relationship, that is, and affecting the broader context of the geostrategic landscape in Asia and elsewhere. So that is why it's very important to understand this dynamics. So you don't minimize the role of energy in really shaping the trajectory as to where things are going to go. And I bet you this, that part of the president's conversations, some of them might be without the presence of the press and all that, is going to tackle this issue of energy, because it's very, very important. So, as I said, this cross-border energy infrastructure, in the case of China, that embarks on, in the case of the BRI, it's to advance its geopolitical objective. Straightforward, because that's what the objective is. And what it is aimed at connecting Asia to Europe and Africa through trade and infrastructure routes. That's just how you think about it, because when you take into consideration over 60 countries, when you take into consideration over 4.5 billion people, consumers, that is, you can just see the big picture, I would think. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And this, to me, where the idea of China's grand strategy is into the idea of understanding, because it comes from both angles, geoeconomics and geopolitical strategy, both of them. But because that's where things are headed. This is why I said what I said as far as Asia, the way it is going forward. Duncan, thank you so much, sir, for your super sticker. I appreciate it. So let me, guys, provide you let me provide you a brief analysis here, and I'm going to give you a question of the day, and we just call it off. So here's the thing, and I'm going to do it right from the start, because right from the start, as far as how and why, the objective of the trip, okay, is to dismiss the notion or the emerging statements that the United States focus may have been shifted to Europe, given what's going on in Ukraine. And here is the thing: the reality, it is. It took the president of the United States to go physically there to drive the message home. Because that's what it is. So, and this is why it becomes the question of, is the Asia Pacific or Indo-Pacific, whatever you want to call it, priorities have been put in the back burner? This is why I said right from the start, this is the objective of the trip. One of the objectives, shall we say. So the other aspects to it is also because the United States wants to stay relevant when it comes to Asia Pacific, given ASEAN's neutrality. It's very, very crucial for you guys to understand this point. As I read your comment last time, as I read last time some of the comments, one of our viewers stated that, maybe ASEAN leaders shouldn't travel to the United States. Yeah, I can see the logic of that. The question is why they didn't do it. And I don't have the answer to that because I don't know. So there is another very, very, very optics, a big one that you need to keep in mind and understand. As I always say, it's not about just information; it's understanding that information. And this particular aspect has to do with the location of which one was the first country the president went to. So, because it was very notable aspects of the trip, is that the president is visiting or landed, because he's already there, visited South Korea first ahead of Japan, which is unusual. It is unusual, at least to my knowledge. And I've been following global affairs for quite a while. So even when I was a kid, I still have in my safe, I still have my notes that I used to write way back. Like I remember the meeting between Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan. I wrote about it, and I have the notes that I wrote back when I was a kid back then. Anyway, so the idea that it's always been customary that the United States will go to Japan first, not this time around, and there are two main reasons to that. If I am to put my geopolitical analyst hat on, one, it has to do with giving support, a boost of sort to South Korea's new president, Mr. Yoon, because Mr. Yoon, or President Yoon, not Mr. President Yoon, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, is that, and I remember during his inauguration speech, President Yoon Suk-yeol promised, and I quote this word here, promised an audacious plan, end of quote. To do what? To strengthen North Korea's economy in exchange for denuclearization. The reason I'm smiling is because it's a fantasy. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what made him think that because you're going to strengthen North Korea's economy, they're going to denuclearize. That ain't going to happen. And it will not happen, no matter what. So, once again, could it be this is the reason why President Biden decided, we're going to stop in South Korea first? And what's interesting is that President Yoon, is a conservative. Okay, he's from the People Power Party. Interesting when he gave these remarks after winning the elections and replaced President Moon Jae-in. Why is that important? Well, Moon Jae-in, if you recall, when he was in the United States a couple months ago, and I think we did a video or mentioned it in one of our videos, Moon Jae-in, the United States was pressuring him to issue negative statements about China, and he refused. And the reason he refused, because his argument was that's going to cause economic hardships in South Korea. Why? Because South Korea has major trade with China. This is the mistake Australia made. And we all know where the economy of Australia as of today, despite what the Australian government is saying. So that is the reason why. The second point as to why President Biden decided to land first in South Korea, then stop by Japan on Sunday. So the second objective is that the United States wants to sort of reflect, shall we say, its high hopes for South Korea's new leader to strengthen the trilateral cooperation between US, Japan, and South Korea. Because remember, Moon Jae-in, the same thing with when he was asked to join the Quad or AUKUS, one of the other, and said, no, we're not. We don't want to. So there is a possibility to that. So by making the first trip or first leg of the trip of the president in South Korea, the United States in this case sends a message to Seoul that it remains committed to the Korean Peninsula, because regardless of what the developments are and so forth, even though North Korea has announced that they might be testing some nuclear missiles of sort, so that coincide with the arrival of the president. They haven't done it yet. I have not found out any. I don't know, guys, you heard something, whatever, but I just checked before I came on the air. It was nothing there. I even checked from some sources inside the intelligence agency in South Korea. There was no confirmation from that. So here's the thing. South Korea's spy agency has reported recently that, when I say recently, it was just yesterday, that North Korea is ready to do either a test, to launch an ICBM, or test a nuclear bomb. Either or. So, and it's just waiting for the right time. Well, what is the right time for North Korea to do that? I don't know. I don't have the answer. And even based on what I read, and even their intelligence agency doesn't have the answer. So they don't know. So North Korea is keeping everybody guessing, I guess. And that would be the objective and purpose for it. So. Here is what I found also very, very interesting that was not disclosed by the Western media. Maybe it might come up soon, whatever, but I wanted to share it with you so you'll be first to know about it. Is that South Korea's the intelligence agency, this is South Korea, became the first in Asia to join NATO's cyber defense group. So, which is a move that I believe have already intensifies the tensions in the region. And of course, because it not only angered China, but also because its objective is targeted towards China. So you can just see. So the question that becomes common sense is, why will South Korea's intelligence agency put itself in that position? Could this also explain why the president first leg of the trip is to South Korea, but not Japan? There's one thing here, and I just want to close in this with to let you know. Then I'll ask the question, and we'll close out here. So, the one thing I want you to keep in mind, because you're gonna be reading or hearing whatever, that President Biden's. This is based on what I read regarding the itinerary. The president's gonna close his trip with a Quad summit, which I found very ironic. So, well, of course, you know who's in the Quad: India, US, Japan, and Australia. Where he will be joined by the leaders of those of Japan, Australia, and India. You know, the interesting thing about the Quad, and I said this many times, I doubt its credibility, I doubt its efficiency, and I doubt its ability to emerge as a bloc of security or alliance, whatever you want to call it. Small version of NATO, if you will. So, because the question that we need to ask for us, especially for people in Asia, is can Quad provide any solutions to regional problems? Yeah, and there are many problems there, because there's one thing I'm sure of, is that Quad is no alternative to China in Asia Pacific. That is very important to understand. And the idea of the meeting of Quad during this trip to Japan, again, are all this sending a message, which is of course, but also, is it a message of substance, or is it just a bravado? I'll let you reach that conclusion yourself, guys. Here's a question for the day. Considering the current global dynamics, and by the way, the reason I put this question together is I reflected back on my, as I said, when I was doing my master's degree in international security, and we were dealing with Asian security issues. And I still remember, that's what prompted me to put this question this way. So considering the current global dynamics, what will the US strategy on China be moving forward? I repeat the question. Considering the current global dynamics, what will US strategy on China be moving forward? I want to say thank you guys for all your support and look forward to seeing you next time. As always, guys, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.